All right, let's talk about conflict. It's everywhere, from big boardroom meetings to just figuring out what's for dinner. But here's the thing. Our whole approach to it is built on this really old, kind of broken foundation. So today, we're going to break down exactly what that is, and more importantly, how to build something way, way better.
Seriously, think about it for a second. That last tense meeting at work, that argument with your partner about vacation plans, you walk away and sure, the conflict is technically over, but you've got this sour taste in your mouth, that nagging feeling that maybe, just maybe, everybody lost a little something.
And that feeling, that's usually because you settled for a compromise. We're all taught that compromise is the mature thing to do, right? It's the goal. But what if I told you that meeting in the middle is actually a failure of imagination? In this explainer, we are going to completely tear that idea apart and show you a path to a much, much bigger victory.
To get out of the trap, you first have to see the bars. So let's start by looking at the invisible system that runs almost every conflict we have. It's a mindset that has been shaping our decisions for literally centuries.
This right here is the culprit, the adversary system. And like the slide says, this is not a new idea. It goes all the way back to ancient Greece. You had two sides argue their case, and some neutral third party would just pick a winner. And that model became the blueprint for everything: our legal systems, our political debates, even sports. For centuries, this idea that someone has to win and someone has to lose just went completely unchallenged. That is, until the mid-20th century, when thinkers like social psychologist Morton Deutsch started asking a really revolutionary question: does it have to be a competition?
And while this quote just perfectly captures the heart of that competitive mindset, Sun Tzu's The Art of War isn't just some dusty old military book. It's the official playbook for the adversary system. The whole point isn't to understand each other or work together. It's all about strategic deception to get the upper hand.
I mean, it doesn't get much more blunt than that, does it? Lure, trap, crush. This is a total zero-sum game. The entire focus is on making your opponent weaker so that you can win. Now be honest, does that sound like a healthy way to run a team, or a family, or a relationship?
Okay, so if that whole win-lose system is so brutal, we came up with a softer version, didn't we? We call it compromise. But this is where we walk right into a really dangerous trap. You know what's so fascinating about this? This is a quote from Chris Voss, a former top FBI hostage negotiator. And he's basically saying that what we call win-win is often just a race to the middle that leaves everybody feeling kind of meh. It's not a real victory, it's just a defeat that hurts a little less.
Let's just look at this visually for a second. Win, lose. That's the classic fight we've been talking about. Lose, well, that's just a total train wreck for everybody. But look really closely at compromise. It's not a win. It's where party A loses something and party B loses something. Both people walk away having given something up. But look at that fourth option at the bottom. That's the one we almost never aim for.
Let this one really sink in for a minute. Compromise isn't the solution. It's the emergency exit you smash the glass for when you can't figure out how to build something better together. It's basically admitting that you failed to find a truly great solution.
So, if head-to-head competition is destructive, and just compromising is a quiet kind of failure, what's left? What's the alternative? Well, this brings us to the actual solution, a much more powerful approach that aims for something way better than just splitting things down the middle. This is it. True collaboration. And look, it's not about meeting in the middle. It's about working together to create a brand new middle, a totally new option that's way better than what either of you came up with on your own. The whole focus shifts from what can I get to what can we build together.
So, how do we actually get there? Well, first, you have to find that shared goal, right? The big picture. Then everybody involved has to agree that hitting that goal is more important than their own ego or their own agenda. And finally, and this is so important, you have to genuinely see the value that every single person brings to the table. You got to recognize that your combined skills can create something that would be absolutely impossible to do alone.
Okay, this all sounds fantastic in theory, but how do you actually make it happen in the real world? How do you lead a team, or even just yourself, away from those old ingrained habits and toward this better way of thinking?
The real key here is to make this a conscious practice. You have to be intentional about it. So when you feel that gravitational pull to just split the difference, stop, pause, and actively ask, wait a minute, is there a better outcome here that we just haven't thought of yet? You have to challenge that us versus them language and literally train your brain and your team's brain to go hunting for that true collaborative win.
Look, this is a huge shift in thinking, and it is not easy. So why is that?
What's the biggest single obstacle that's standing in our way? It's this right here. From the school playground to the classroom, we are all trained in the adversary system. We're taught to compete, to argue our point, to win at all costs. The hardest part of this whole thing is consciously unlearning those deep, reflexive habits that tell us every single interaction has to be a fight.
And that really brings us to the most important takeaway of this whole explainer. This is the mindset. This is the mantra you have to adopt. See compromise for what it really is, a small defeat, and start training for something bigger. Train for that shared victory, because that, my friends, is how you truly win without ever having a fight.